Hey guys and welcome to a newish What If here. Today we're doing What If Female Naruto would release part 1, and yes, I do know What If Naruto would release has been done to death, but hey, what if Female Naruto, so what would release, what would change? Because stuff would definitely change, but what would change, what would be different? So, let's find out, let's get into this. So Naruto would be sitting in class waiting for sensei, or waiting for somewhat a team, or somewhat team 7, course person of her, Sasuke and Sakura. She would still be the dead last, though her outfit wouldn't be the bright, somewhat orange jumpsuit that Naruto wore, even though she would still very much have that. It just wasn't her outfit. Now what she'd be wearing would be her shinobi outfit, which was somewhat, or at least which had kind of evolved, or at least the reason why she, or at least wasn't wearing a sort of orange semi jumpsuit, was that, when she'd, or at least had kind of done, or at least finally got the transformation done for the first time, and then they'd managed to also transform into a she'd decide to, try and, he's a villain, more so perverted one, and seen how they seemed quite frankly reacted to it. She had gotten curious if, in the way she could somewhat still, of course, not being naked, still wear very much clothes, but still induce a somewhat similar kind of effect of, them being somewhat, incredibly stunned. And yeah, so slowly kind of outfit, somewhat, once she, went through, a similar phase of testing, and she'd gone through somewhat every, somewhat, colour, somewhat orange of skirts, tops, and all that, and eventually she'd settled on begrudgingly just black, as it simply had the greatest effect of simply kind of getting them, or at least somewhat manipulating that kind of somewhat inherent kind of instinct, somewhat deep down, somewhat instinct or drive, pretty much in a way lust. And yeah, what somewhat should be wearing would be somewhat a short-sleeved top that would be somewhat kind of transparent around the breast area, chest area, which somewhat would be, somewhat also her height would be the exact same as Ken Naruto. The only difference would be that she'd have a B-cup-sized chest, which she kind of, or at least somewhat complained about that. The reason why her chest was so large is because it somewhat it took from her height, and so as such she'd kind of wanted a smaller chest size, as it means she'd be taller. But yeah, anyway, though, somewhat, so that, and also somewhat a black, somewhat Filey-esque skirt that would be about like 2/4 of the way down a thigh, if not a quarter, somewhat 1/4 to about 2/4 down somewhat a thigh, as well as somewhat, though she did also have a slightly different one, whereas that one was more so for missions outside of, the village and that, and somewhat kind of training. She did have somewhat one that would be somewhat a bit more, slightly more, not necessarily more comfortable, but just somewhat kind of not, somewhat a somewhat more restrictive type skirt. And mainly somewhat, anyway, though that she would also wear somewhat transparent panties for, again, to somewhat drive that kind of, or at least somewhat momentarily, shock that. So if you think about it, if you, going to fight someone, or at least you're fighting someone, and next thing you know, someone like that foot's gone about to hit you in the head, and you're someone, obviously you see their panties, and you not only see their panties, but their vagina, you're probably going to freeze momentarily, and that momentarily froze could be all that's enough for you to die, to be killed. So that's why you should wear them, for that kind of specific reason. And packs should warn them somewhat long enough that she'd gotten used to wearing them. Somewhat, in other words, the embarrassment of once someone known what she was wearing had gone. And yeah. Anyway, and so as well, she'd wear somewhat thigh high, or at least thigh high, 2 quarters, somewhat 2 quarters, somewhat thigh high stockings. Someone that would just, instead of, encompassing her entire foot, it would just go sort of around her, down and sort of around her foot, not encompassing her entire foot. And yeah, and then from there, black, only somewhat either black or dark blue, somewhat 1-inch Kanochi sandals. So open-toed Kanochi sandals. So the reason why is because she'd kind of wanted, or at least she'd seen somewhat like thigh-high boots, and had seen these somewhat other more seen sort of women easily able to somewhat bring, or at least somewhat had seen them and had kind of wanted them, but her shoe size was by like a size or two, somewhat really kind of small, or at least they didn't make similarly those for sort of her small foot size. So yeah, that's why she wore stockings instead, as it still delivered a similar somewhat thing. Anyway. Yeah, somewhat skin colour would be a kind of soft, creamy white colour like her mother. She'd also have somewhat blood red hair, though it'd be somewhat slightly darker than, somewhat bright blood red, though not as dark as, deoxynized blood, which is pretty dark. Yeah, so it'd be slightly dark red, a slightly dark blood red colour. And so as well, she'd have really red eyes, wine red eyes. And how would she, Kushna had violet, means had blue. Well, yes, but to get violet eyes, you must firstly have both the genetics for both blue and red eyes, which could possibly mean that Kushna's parents, one was blue-eyed, one was red-eyed. And yeah, or just one parent possessed both eye colours. One eye red, one eye blue. Yeah. This is why, or at least in my mind, why Ken Naruto has, blue eyes instead of, maybe violet or a violet and blue eye. Yeah, anyway. So, yeah. And, well, yeah. Though, of course, 3 hours later, Kakashi, someone would, of course, arrive, and, some of his first impressions of them would be someone, great. He got, 2 fangirls and a, somewhat Kuzuchiya. Sure, so he knew Naruto was obviously, pranks and that, but the initial way someone she dressed with just a quick look over made Kakashi somewhat think she was somewhat of a potential kind of, sort of fangirl. After all, he didn't really know Naruto, besides from the, the somewhat girl that did pranks, or kind of as prank queen. And yeah. So once there was someone up on the rooftop, that few minutes of silence between them, he'd kind of look over them and kind of more somewhat judge them that way, get a better judgment of them before they introduced themselves, and he'd sort of realize initial, somewhat one kind of look judgment of Naruto was somewhat wrong, as he could feel that, or at least he could feel something within him, somewhat a small amount of lust creeping into him the more he stared at Naruto, and so he kind of realised that the way she dressed kind of was actually causing this sort of lust, and you sort of realised that, or at least somewhat less, sort of lust, if she could utilise it properly, could massively, increase her survivability against, anyone really. And yeah, so of course he'd point at Sakura, and of course, after having to simply show Sakura how it was done, and it's just someone, introduce himself, which like canon, Sakura's one would as well, though Naruto would just sort of roll her eyes. And yeah, though Kakashi then moved to Naruto and would ask, and would try and think of a name, a somewhat, nickname for her, but nothing would really come to mind, mainly because Kakashi, someone could, or at least could, someone could remember, Kusuna's somewhat fury, and if she was anything like a mother, it's probably best to just not call her by any name at all. Yeah, so just point that out and go, you introduce yourself, or you next. Yeah, so someone would state that she was Naruto Uzumaki, and that she kind of, that's something I like to train, and that's something my hobbies are. I somewhat like to compare, ramen, somewhat, somewhat eating and comparing the somewhat ramen against one another, and some of my dislikes are somewhat shinobi that don't actually take, or at least, some of the ninjas that don't take the shinobi life seriously, and that it's a somewhat, and somewhat, after all, it's a world of kill or be killed, raped or be, somewhat, and someone killed or be raped, and somewhat, and some of my dream is to become or at least is to one day become Hokage. And Kakashi would be somewhat surprised, as compared to somewhat what he initially, thought as she'd done her interjection. Second, she, states she hated, or at the very least disliked, those that didn't take the shinobi life seriously. Very much changed his opinion rapidly of her. And that the reason why she was dressed the way she was because she very much, was somewhat there to manipulate. How at least would, try and slowly develop her way of manipulating them emotionally to a point of where she could easily defeat them. And Anyway, though, Sasuke's run would go down like in canon, and from there, canon would come back with somewhat him, revealing that they aren't, actual gaining yet, and all that, and the somewhat, of course, the next day that, somewhat, task, the battle task would go down similar, somewhat in canon. Somewhat different, somewhat different, but otherwise somewhat similar. Either Naruto would be tied up, or Sakura would. Probably more so Sakura than Naruto, but it's kind of, somewhat up to you. What you somewhat think. I'll leave that, up to you and your imagination. But moving forward though, a week would pass. Not a month, but a week. As somewhat 1 week would pass since they'd become a team, and Yeah, of course, Naruto had, taken somewhat quite literally when Kakashi told them that those who abandoned mission are scum, but those who abandon their teammates are worse than scum, because they'd taken that to heart. And that kind of maybe Sasuke and Sakura, who didn't really, somewhat listen to it really at all. And, yeah, somewhat kind of just think about it, just somewhat, yeah. So somewhat kind of realised that Kakashi somewhat, in a way, abandoned them. After all, he was a teammate. This was Team 7, so he was the sensei, but it didn't change the fact that, they were a team of 4, and as such, he's, in a way, abandoned them by not really training them at all. So, he trained them and maybe, or at least, tried getting their teamwork up and a bit. And maybe the occasional spar here and there, but that was it. It was mainly just D rank. Once D ranks were done, they were dismissed. And yeah. So she'd started asking Cassie if, she could speak to him privately. And yeah, he'd sort of nod. And after they would finish, for the day, you'd dismiss them. Though, of course, Naruto would stay behind. And once Sasuke and Sakura would sort of leave them, sort of leave the training ground, he'd sort of ask, Naruto sort of what was up to it. She'd kind of point at him and she'd somewhat would go, sort of, Sensei, you've pretty much somewhat abandoned us. You're the one who preached that those who abandon the mission are scum, but those who abandon their teammates are worse than scum. You told us that on the day or at least the day somewhat you passed us, yet you've pretty much abandoned us. Oh, and do somewhat say how? Simply, you are a part of this team as well. You somewhat only watch us when we do D ranks, so you don't help us out. Which, remember, this isn't a 3-man team and a teacher. Sensei, this is a 4-person team. You are a part of the team. There is no simply I in team now, is there? From the last time I checked, it's about TEAM. And yeah, there's no I in there at all. So yeah, plus something, as I said, you in a way abandon us for something not training. Up as if you believed we were strong enough to say take or at least what had happened when we'd go on a C something C rank for the first time. We'd probably end up potentially being killed as you didn't train us. You abandoned us. And yeah, of course, somewhat when it's Kakashi would hear that and that argument, he'd try to argue back, but someone couldn't, as he'd be lost and fought at that sort of argument. And the more he thought about it, the more he realised that he kind of did, in a way, like so as he said, in a way, he did abandon them, whilst Naruto would, go off on somewhat make a bit of a tangent. He'd somewhat kind of realise that, well, yeah, he was not just their sensei, he was a team member, and that if, say, once they all become, say, Chunin, that the team could go from being a somewhat Jonin and, somewhat, getting a, somewhat a student teacher team to a more, just actual solid, 4-person team that could operate incredibly well together. And yeah, and for that to potentially somewhat happen, that and also for them to progress in their career, he would have to teach them. He would, this wasn't some, somewhat kind of mission or that. He did have to train them, and if he didn't, like he hadn't pretty much yet, yeah. And somewhat he'd kind of finally kind of shake his somewhat head to kind of clear his thoughts. And so he'd realised that now they'd been talking and he'd somewhat put up his hand to, stop a rant or that. And he'd sort of go, well, he'd sort of that way, so he'd look at her and he'd go, well then, I guess, he'd somewhat kind of go, well, somewhat I'm kind of, well, sorry, somewhat, because, you're alright, I was the one that, told you, but I didn't really, or at least somewhat you and I didn't really live up to it. You forgive me. She'd go, well, she'd somewhat look at Kakashi and she'd go, I've had somewhat, the old man apologise to me more than enough to somewhat to know that word somewhat to say you're sorry is easy, to show you're sorry is entirely different. So until you actually start training us, will I forgive you? Yeah, Kikashi would somewhat just nod and dude somewhat. He'd momentarily think as he'd somewhat though not to state that he was going to sort of at least go though Kikashi to sort of stop her. Yeah, she'd sort of like panic kind of with a slight, somewhat question look to it, she'd just go, well, as you're the only one here at the moment, why don't I somewhat, just kind of train you for right now. That's the way a lot of daylight, yeah. But I know you want me to train the team and I will tomorrow. But as you're here and they aren't, and, yeah, plus it's not like you're going to make massive progress anyway. And yeah, she just sort of stare at him. Those who'd go, at the very least, someone go home first to say, so, my, someone scared you're going to change me, train me. Yeah, Cassie just somewhat shake his head. No. Somewhat, what you're somewhat wrong, you could be called in, somewhat wrong that. No, could you? At least, so, no. She just slow, and so from there, at least somewhat Kakashi would, or at least would vastly spar with her to really see where somewhat she was. So he got a good idea doing the bell test where they were out, but well, slightly Sakura and Sasuke used ninjutsu and Sakura just passed out. Secondly, tried a bit of genjutsu. And yeah, so really the only one he knew about the most was Naruto itself. And yeah, so from there, the Spine needs someone to realise the harder, or at least somewhat, that as he fought her, it seemed to get hard to fight her, so he'd, press her harder, and eventually that feeling would return, and after a while, you'd eventually realise after about 10 or so minutes that Naruto had adapted to his fighting style. The reason why it was or at least it stopped getting hard, or at least somewhat kind of stopped getting hard to fight, somewhat to similarly fight against her, was that she was, she somewhat had a fighting style that exactly she'd adapted to his fighting style. And that's why it got seemingly somewhat, hard, and why he had to get faster and always, use more of his strength and speed to, continue, Anyway. Yeah, so after that, tell that he'd teach how to more, properly kind of, throw a punch without, without, broadcasting, she's going to throw, someone to hit, chuck a fist or an uppercut or, do a spinning kick or, something like that. He'd somewhat nod, and though he'd somewhat go to the tree and would someone tell her about tree walking, and yeah, so she'd somewhat, or at least get kunai from somewhat the kunai pants down somewhat, and or at least skewed by skirt somewhat, and from there would start, or at least would try, start doing the tree walking exercise. So after a while, she would stop and would ask Kakashi how to somewhat do it, or at least a trick or that to get it somewhat faster, and he would give her the same advice that Sakura did in canon during the Blind of Waves mission when they were learning to do the tree walking exercise. And yeah, so from there, or at least somehow, or at least a few hours later, he would dismiss somewhat Naruto, and yeah, he would kind of think about somewhat, training, or at least properly, training them heavily. After all, they were a kind of frontline team, and well, somewhat he wasn't, kind of, and well, yeah, and somewhat he knew if there was going to be a war, they would be, probably in the front lines or supporting, some of the front lines, and which would mean they would have to be damn strong, and would also have to be able to operate independently of one another. And yeah, which the only way to be able to guarantee that would be weight training. Mainly Sasuke was the strongest out of the three of them, that was the fastest, and Sakura was just book smart, not necessarily the Sakura was kind of overall, smarter than the three, but only by book smart. Naruto instinctually wise when it came down to fighting, would outmatch both Sasuke and Sakura any day of the week. While somewhat, kind of somewhat Sasuke being somewhat which he could copy any somewhat jutsu that or at least somewhat his opponent was stupid enough to show him the full set of hand signs for. So yeah, they all had their own, what they were great at, and yeah, though who'd somewhat want to, or at least somewhat get less, strength and obviously somewhat speed up, or at least Sasuke and Sakura's speed up, Naruto's and Sakura's strength up, and Sakura's stamina up, and Sakura's, and a bit of, and somewhat Sasuke as well, stamina up. And yeah, Naruto didn't need a stamina increasing any more than it already was. And yeah, so you'd somewhat go to a somewhat shinobi store, and more so similarly what would just looked like ironically just a normal some clothes store, though the only thing that would somewhat say that it was a shinobi store was the fact that on the front door it stated that only somewhat shinobi / Konrichi could enter. And yeah, I'm sure civilians could as well if they, somewhat had a child that was, in the academy, and they could, somewhat prove it to get, somewhat maybe, an academy close for their child, though very few did, who's mainly somewhat kind of getting that had been about 6 months and up, or at least, getting that being, or at least shinobi that being, getting that being, getting for 6 months or longer. And yeah, so, so somewhat seeming, seemingly somewhat Kakashi would be a bit surprised, as it was, very, very, kind of, went somewhat clothes shopping, seemingly, though it was, of course, a shinobi somewhat store, so it did have more than just, clothes, and it'd be the best place to find all these chakra weight. And yeah, so you'd go up to the sort of like, at least up to the somewhat, or at least sort of cashier. And the person go, somewhat Kakashi, it's kind of, somewhat odd to kind of somewhat see you here. It's not kind of, every day you somewhat do seem to go close shopping now. And yeah, and go, somewhat, the Kakashi just go, I'm just somewhat, here to get somewhat chakra rates. I see. So, somewhat Naruto, somewhat was right. You are somewhat a sensei. Huh? You somewhat know Naruto? You'd, be somewhat surprised, and she'd somewhat nod, of course. She's, well, it's where she got some clothes here from, somewhat her can't reach outfit from. And where she somewhat comes to kind of complain and that. Kikashi would be a bit surprised to complain. Well, yeah, you probably learn sooner or later once you spent more than enough time around her about her somewhat complaining, though she may also not complain around you or indirectly about somewhat her similarly breast size and height. And yeah, Kikashi would just be somewhat confused what would her breast size to height have to do with anything. Or what did those two have to do with it? Yeah. Those who'd sort of wave it off, and that they'd understand once he started. And Kakashi would just somewhat nod, and Darude asked where somewhat or at least rates are somewhat for the males. To which he'd somewhat point, and the Kakashi would stop and would say that he'd come back to know where the female ones were kept. And she'd just sort of nod, and Kakashi would go off to these sort of males, and after a bit of looking, or at least somewhat in the area, would find the somewhat kind of, or at least sort of chakra rates. And somewhat after a bit of looking, you'd find one that somewhat seemed to, or at least would like a similar kind of somewhat, or at least outfit, or at least the top, somewhat was similar to what Sasuke was wearing already. And so it would mean he'd have to put, some, just somewhat plain armbands around his somewhat wrists, and of course leg warmers somewhat on which he somewhat already wore. Besides on that, it wouldn't really look anything, any different. Yeah, so from that you'd go back, you'd somewhat then ask, where the guys were, and would then head in that direction. And yeah, after finding them, he'd look through them, and he'd sort of find one that would, or at least that, well, so he knew Sakura would probably complain, but she would somewhat wear it. And yeah. And yeah. Though, after looking for a good while, he couldn't really find one that seemed to somewhat kind of suit Naruto, just kind of, somewhat, or at least, style of, somewhat shinobi outfit, as they didn't necessarily want to, have to, for them to kind of have to change that shinobi outfit. Or at least that to, wear, some of the red clothing. Yeah, so he'd someone come back and he'd ask if she'd somewhat sold the actual rates separately, to which she'd sort of nod. And then would state that, somewhat that. And yeah, though Sugab or somewhat probably struggling to find something for Naruto or her. To which Kakashi would sort of nod, and she'd always just say one moment, and after a few seconds she'd reappear with similarly somewhat, it was kind of, normally somewhat similarly normal somewhat kind of rings. Or at least, but yeah, just plain old, some normal kind of similarly metal rings. And though they would, of course, somewhat have kind of a cloth that would somewhat wrap around the, or at least somewhat the top of the somewhat ring that would kind of, go down to somewhat about maybe slightly below her elbow or that. And she'd state that, or at least something that had been kind of looking at these for a bit of time now. And that somewhat, or at least somewhat, though she'd state that, unlike somewhat those, somewhat, or at least somewhat these, the actual somewhat gravity, somewhat the weight, the chakra weighted seal was actually engraved into the ring itself. And that's somewhat like the others as well. Or at least the reason why they seem to be more expensive than the others, well, that all, somewhat, or at least somewhat the, or at least bands for Sasuke's and somewhat Sakura's kind of rated somewhat outfits. Sometimes they would have the weight seals on them, and the underneath on the top side, they both had fringes on it, and that the one somewhat on the left hand was just, or at least somewhat one of them was somewhat just one that was a general somewhat all-purpose, somewhat semi all-purpose somewhat frinjitsu seal, and the one somewhat on the right somewhat hand somewhat jutsu current somewhat kunai to it, or shuriken, as you could somewhat have it as one somewhat at a time could be released, and it was also somewhat smokeless, so it would just appear in your hand. Yeah, Kakashi would somewhat nod, and though somewhat after tallying up and somewhat buying it, soon then somewhat asking Kakashi sort of if he somewhat wanted key to somewhat his chakra, to which he'd nod, and he'd said that he was going to ask her that to somewhat key to his chakra, so that whilst Sasuke Sakura and Naruto would be able to activate them, activate and release them, they wouldn't be able to add or take away weight, as he didn't necessarily at the moment kind of trust them, as you could see Sakura putting barely any weight into it, Sasuke putting enough weight into it that he would face plant into the ground, and Naruto probably again enough weight, not necessarily to face plant into the ground, but probably enough weight that should probably be walking with, or at least that any time a foot touched the ground it would leave a small crater, or face first into the ground. And so they would, though it would also state that the, or at least somewhat Funjutsu, somewhat seals in them would also need keying to that chakra, to which Kakashi would state, or at least those should, enough to tell them how to do those. Kakashi would state that Naruto's one would just bring her here to somewhat, kind of have it, key to her chakra, as it'd be, he didn't exactly, want to trigger the wrong, somewhat keying and accidentally have Naruto not in control of her somewhat chakra, but some of the weight of her chakra, the chakra weights, which he'd sort of nod, and so from there, though, Kakashi would go to leave, and she'd go, then what about you? Aren't you going to wear any weights as well? To which Kakashi would stop, and he'd somewhat kind of, he'd somewhat remember that he'd also come here, not just for them, but also for himself, and he'd turn around and go, I somewhat forgot, and you just bully state that because someone you know how to do them. You just buy the somewhat 5 plain ones and would do it himself. So he'd just quack a slight eyebrow. Those should give him 3. He'd throw his eyebrows, go, what about some of my arms, and he'd go, well, no, he'd somewhat, no, he had close, never mind. He'd somewhat well, at least put the weight seals somewhat on him. Until he'd somewhat kind of, so he'd have 3 the chest and arms, yeah, you'd go, what about some back? Like, I need one for my eyes. It's like, well, yeah, but you know, somewhat, what are you exactly going to put them on your legs? Can't exactly put them on your trousers. Otherwise, you would have a weighted torso, now wouldn't you? And you can't exactly put on the bandages because you, well, take them off to take your trousers off. And yeah, Kakashi would kind of go, ah. Yeah, so somewhat disappear and would come back similarly with, at least, you know, somewhat kind of a somewhat flexible, somewhat kind of joke-like thing, though instead of going, you know, around your neck, it would instead go around some of your feet, and Kakashi would go, aren't they somewhat kind of girls? And she'd like, so, you know, you sort of wear bandages around somewhat your, you know, feet to obviously keep your trousers from, you know, riding up and that, and, you know, being caught. So it's not like, you know, that, you know, anyone's going to see you wearing them. He'd somewhat, yeah, so he's like that, so he'd somewhat quickly undo the, well, yeah. So after buying those, he'd leave, and, yeah. And so from there, 3 weeks would go by as, well, somewhat, well, yeah, they had very much somewhat hated Kakashi, and Kakashi himself somewhat hated himself, as he not only pushed them too much to the ground and had even further similarly into it, he'd, you know, pushed himself as well. And yeah, and it somewhat kind of went, or at least they'd set up their somewhat rates to be that Sasuke, or at least somewhat Sakura, would somewhat have similarly the most amount of rates, then Naruto, then Sasuke, or in other words, Sakura would struggle the most with hers, then Naruto, then Sasuke. And the reason why was because Sasuke was somewhat the strongest out of them, and he kind of wanted them roughly about within like about 2 to 3% difference in weight between one another, which would mean the weakest would be about 6%. Yeah, so about 6 to 7% weaker than the strongest. Or at least than the strongest, and of course they were all weaker than him by a good, somewhat more by, you know, a good, you know, massive margin. Yeah, and it'd probably stay like that until he gets old, potentially, maybe. Anyway, though, yeah. So, well, yeah, that, and of course, so much Sakura was incredibly weak, and that indeed kind of had enough of her complaining and that. So, yeah. Somewhat a kind of slightly another reason why. But yeah. And yeah. They'd all, of course, somewhat been, you know, told that, you know, they're, or at least somewhat, you know, the ones on their hands, the badge for Sasuke and Sakura, you know, could somewhat, you know, store, or at least, you know, somewhat the one on Sakura's left and the one on Sasuke's right was just a, you know, normal somewhat thin, or at least somewhat storage scroll. So, you know, they could just store whatever they'd like in it and then have it, you know, come out. While somewhat the one on Sakura's right and Sasuke's left was, you know, somewhat would be where, you know, somewhat, or at least would be the best place for kunai, and probably sure, well, yeah, kunai stored as, you know, somewhat they could either release them all at once or have one, you know, released from it into their hands. That and it was smokeless. And yeah, it was somewhat for Naruto, because somewhat hers and like Sasuke and Sakura's, which were bands, hers were somewhat rings on her fingers. Somewhat, you know, similar. The one on the left was, besides on, you know, weight zero, was also, you know, a, you know, still as like, you know, anything inside of it, and some of the other one being that, and or at least, you know, weight again, but kunai as well. Yeah, pretty much they were this rings were the same as the bands, just they were metal chakra conductive rings. Hello were somewhat kind of more somewhat adamantium, somewhat still. The chakra somewhat metal, well, is the metal that's conducted chakra the best. And that, and also the strongest. And yeah. Anyway. And yeah, as I said, 3 weeks had gone by, and well, what he still didn't exactly truly trust to control the weight in the somewhat, in the things, and how especially, and the person he didn't trust the most at the moment was Sasuke, as he somewhat looked like he was about to just truly, somewhat have enough and, blow a fuse. Similarly, as, he seemed to not really get stronger, and, he did give them a day of rest, from weight training, from, around the weights. Though that was only 1 day a week. And somewhat the rest of the week, they would generally do 2 missions a day. So the first mission they would do without, weights. And then, so after completing that second mission they would do with the weights on. And from there, they would have the weights on all the way until they were pretty much getting ready for bed. Then the weights would be, they could, take the weights off. Either that, or if, somewhat Naruto's case, where he just went bathed in bed. Yeah, did somewhat mean that Sakura was occasionally somewhat in morally somewhat trouble, mainly because, she'd somewhat kind of have the weights somewhat released, and she'd educate her parents on how to, be able to tell if Sakura had her weights on or off. And to somewhat, tell him as she was meant to have them on to kind of get stronger, because she'd, he'd tell her that, or at least that she was the weakest, in the somewhat team, and somewhat as such, if the team would be, attacked, she'd probably be the first to be killed. And of course, someone would say that I don't want that, and you don't want that. So, as she's currently, in a period of, being a fangirl and trying to do anything to get out of somewhat training, and yeah, they would just sort of nod. Of course, they didn't obviously someone want their, daughter, dying because, she didn't, want to get stronger, because it would seemingly ruin her figure or that, which was stupid. And yeah. Anyway, and so, complete that first mission of the day, which was catching Tora, the Fire Daimyo's wife's cat. Hizun would somewhat kind of look at them and would ask them, well, at least somewhat, if they'd like that second mission now or somewhat later, as, occasionally she would have them do that second, mission later on, in the day, when they're somewhat tired, all that, worn down. And yeah. Though Kakashi had somewhat think, and, he'd been thinking for at least the past 2 to 3 days about potentially doing a C rank, as somewhat he knew that, most C rank was just really somewhat escorting or something, something else, either escorting or maybe helping out, somewhat a town, be it, somewhat say, harvesting, the somewhat wheat or that, or being, somewhat a bodyguard for a couple of days. Or just, somewhat helping, somewhat out, if it was outside the village, then it was generally C rank. Even though it could be classified as a D in the village, because it's outside, it'd be C. So, yeah. And so it'd go, well, actually, I believe they're somewhat ready for a C rank mission. They would sort of look at him, Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto would all look at him, so would Hiruzen, and what's his name? Iruka or something, would be somewhat surprised. Yeah, he would go, "You sure, Kakashi?" And he'd go, I am sure, Hokage-sama, they are definitely someone ready for that first C-rank mission. Yeah, Iruka would go, "But Hokage-sama, they've only been, getting informed, someone mums can't be enough someone to Iruka. If it was anyone else asking, oh, there's somewhat wouldn't. But as it's Kakashi, somewhat that's asking. Somewhat allow it, Kakashi. You'd somewhat just nod as Hizen would sort of open up the sort of C-rank mission, sort of list. And after, a while, of course, he would give them these, Land of Waves mission. And yeah, of course, a few seconds later, Tazno would walk in, and of course, he would, he'd somewhat kind of insult the three. Or, at the very least, kind of, insult Naruto, about sort of height, and, well, because, at the moment, while they had their somewhat weighted off, and with somewhat, or at least, somewhat her hair would kind of somewhat start to somewhat rise to it. Somewhat Kakashi, or at least somewhat his would just somewhat kind of just somewhat shake his head. Iruka would somewhat pale. Sasuke would somewhat take a few steps away from her. He wasn't going to get punched by her this time. He'd learned in the academy what somewhat happened when somewhat her hair started to simply defy the laws of gravity. And yeah, that was a painful experience. Somewhat as he'd crashed into a tree, then he'd caused somewhat her to get angry, and he'd cracked somewhat a part of his spine. He'd managed to someone had about 1 to 2 broken ribs. Well, a broken rib. A few cracked and a few heavily bruised ones. So yeah, I really didn't want to feel that pain again. So he stepped away, and Kakashi somewhat slightly stepped away, just remembering, somewhat. And just how strong Kushina was when she got pissed. And yeah, Kunai somewhat awed. But yeah, before Kakashi could, say anything to Naruto or even Hiruzen, Kunai would appear in her hand and then simply disappear. The only thing they would hear would be the sound of glass shattering. They would look just to see, Tazno, some bottle that he was kind of, somewhat holding, just shatter. And a kunai-sized slit in the wall behind it, and yeah. Not kunai. Tazno would somewhat go from, not looking all that happy to now looking like he was about to piss himself. Scared. Yeah, he would sigh and he'd put a somewhat hand on Naruto and would go, "That's enough, Naruto. Sanji can't, somewhat kill her." Somewhat kind to which she'd just somewhat send a glare up at Kakashi, though she would take a sort of deep breath to calm herself down. Yeah, though she would send him one hell of a harsh glare. To just cause someone Tazno to somewhat slightly stumble back. And yeah. Though after of course someone talking with him for a few somewhat seconds, and someone Kakashi would tell them to, prepare for some, to leave Konoha, or at least someone to meet him at the front gates of Konoha tomorrow at 8, and to prepare for somewhat 1 month and to pack for a month away from Konoha. And with that, they would dismiss them. And yeah, though somebody would go to kind of apologize for, Naruto's actions, though Hizen would just wave him off, stating that he somewhat guessed that this may somewhat happen. This would probably, somewhat happen if anyone brought up our height. And yeah, Kakashi would somewhat just nod at that, and yeah, from there, from there, next day, they would somewhat arrive at the front gates, and they would somewhat leave, with Tazna deciding to kind of stay somewhat away from, Naruto itself. And yeah, so she just someone, go and walk off somewhat in front, as yeah, somewhat these things would go somewhat like, in canon, with Sakura asking, Tazna about the land of waves and that, and yeah. Though someone did eventually, of course, they would, sort of walk past a sort of paddle. So none of them would sort of kind of or at least somewhat see, or at least similarly see, as again Kakashi trained them into the ground. So as due to some, or at least their training, it had sort of asked Asuma if he could, pretend to be somewhat an enemy, transform into somewhat, an enemy, similarly Shinobi. And yeah, because they wanted to see not only their sort of reaction, but also how they would fare in the case of his actual death, potentially triggered by, a trap. And of course, though he'd stated before, Asuma could even ask that he would do it, the same with his team. And it'd be sort of only fact which, Asuma was, fine with that, and he sort of Asuma couldn't help but also, be curious on, his own team's some reaction to his death, and that would they just freeze up, or would they, carry on. And yeah, safe to say, those Sakura, yelled at him, was completely stunned in fear. Sasuke and Sakura, or Sasuke and Kakashi was somewhat. Sasuke and Naruto would be somewhat surprised, though they somewhat kind of just would look to somewhat one another. That they were that somewhat surprised. They would just kind of look at one and somewhat another, and they would both similarly somewhat pinch themselves to make sure it wasn't either a kind of genjutsu or that, and somewhat, yeah, to it somewhat Asuma and kind of Kakashi would slightly somewhat sweat drop. Though then again, it seemed it wasn't, it probably wouldn't really ever happen, for a, from another village to just, get into Konoha and kill, Kakashi of all people. It'd be more than likely they'd try and go after the Hokage and not Kakashi. And yeah, so somewhat after that, they then pretty much somewhat similarly nodded to one another and proceeded to somewhat surprise the hell out of both Asuma and Kakashi on their teamwork. How they didn't really seemingly like one another or that, but how was their teamwork damn impressive when they seemingly put, their somewhat issues with one another aside. Could they damn work as a team? And yeah, even though it was no real issue, going against someone, even though Asuma didn't have all that much difficulty going up against them, their teamwork was damn surprising. And yeah, so of course, somewhat when they would somewhat, or at least when, the Demon Brothers would similarly, jump out from, the puddle and would, seemingly kill Kakashi. They'd turn around, Sakura would look somewhat momentarily kind of shocked in that. Naruto and Sasuke, on the other hand, would just turn to one another, somewhat nod, and would somewhat, both would similarly, somewhat throw kunai, which would, of course, somewhat, or at least somewhat pin the chain to the tree, so the Demon Brothers would, of course, have to dehook it, and they would start fighting against them. And yeah, though after a somewhat few minutes, or at least though after that, it would only be about 30 seconds to maybe a minute and a half when Kakashi would have to appear to somewhat tie the Demon Brothers up, as he didn't exactly want Naruto and Sasuke kind of, having that, somewhat killing them, as he'd rather like to get any, somewhat kind of torture them for information in that. And yeah, so after doing that, and getting the information, he'd, somewhat come back and would then proceed to, grind Tazn, or at least would proceed to kind of grind Tazn up until, Tazn would crumble and would tell them, about Gato and the true state of the Land of Waves and that. And yeah, of course, from there, Kakashi would tell the group that it was his team that it was probably a lot harder, probably a B, if not A rank, and that it was up to them if they wanted to continue to it. Naruto and Sasuke would, of course, state almost immediately that they wanted, to continue it, and Sakura would somewhat less enthusiastic, or at least, well, not really enthusiastically, but somewhat not as shy as she did in canon, but still somewhat shy, would state that she would want to kind of continue it as well. She wouldn't be as scared as she would be in canon, but still still somewhat scared. And yeah, so from there, somewhat they would go, and of course eventually they would, once they would make it to Wave, they would end up encountering Zamza, to which would go down pretty much black in canon. The only difference would be actually nothing. And yeah, maybe Kakashi wouldn't exactly pass out. Actually, yeah, that would be the one probably difference, would be that Kakashi would be near passing out, like at the border of passing out, that the 3 weeks of training with some of the weights and that had improved his chakra reserves enough to a point of where he would just be at the tip of passing out from lack of chakra. Not really a lack of chakra, but not enough chakra. So yeah, anyway, and yeah, so that's why I'm going to end this part here, guys. So if you have enjoyed this part, do tell me in the comments down below, and of course, if you want part 2, do say, guys. And yeah, hope you guys have a good day or night, depending on wherever you are and whenever you watch this, and good bye.